In the last 3 to 4 years of me being active on this channel, I've talked about tons of different things that are making NASCAR relevant or irrelevant or whatnot. I've talked about movies, I've talked about the racing itself, I've talked about the fans, I've talked about everything that I can think of, except one, commercials. I have not touched at all on the effect that commercials have on the viewing experience for fans, both old and new. A good commercial can hype up the most diehard of fans. It also can get somebody interested. It can pull at heartstrings, or it can make you laugh uncontrollably. There's tons, and I mean tons, of different commercials in NASCAR's history that really push these things forward. And there's a lot of them that do quite well at it as well. But today I'm going to focus on the ones, more or less, that have made an impact on me and have been really big overall in the history of the sport in the past couple years, or decades even for that matter. These are going to be serious, some are going to be funny, some are going to be cool, and I'm also going to then at the end say which one is my favorite. There's hundreds to choose from, but I had to whittle it down to just under 2 dozen. I'm not going to be doing a list or anything with this, but I am going to be talking about commercials in particular that I like. Now, starting off is the Every Twist and a Turn commercial. This one was huge in the early 2010s. I love it, absolutely love it, because it takes the sport seriously. It shows how many different ways the sport can go and shows new fans or people who may get into the sport that, yeah, this isn't just a bunch of dumb rednecks driving in circles. Tons of stuff happens. It's really good at hyping up old fans while also getting those new fans at least intrigued. Also, when you look for the most part at the commentary being made in the commercial, it's timeless. You can fit this in the 90s, in the early 2000s, in its time period in the early 2010s. Hell, you can even fit it at the end of the 2010s and early 2020s. Look on Twitter at what Elijah Burke did with the 2019 edition of it. Now, another more serious commercial that can be especially good at getting a younger audience was the old Sprint NASCAR Wild Animals or Lights or however you want to say it commercial series. These just looked cool. Yeah, it wasn't going to get a kid like me at the time who was 8 or 9 to buy a phone from Sprint, but I can tell you what, to this day, I still remember those monster cars fighting each other. I remember all of that, and it was awesome to watch on TV, if not just for the colors that were on the screen. It's visually appealing, and it's something that really should be emulated a lot in modern marketing. You get somebody's eye caught on something, that's half the battle won already. Now, another commercial that I absolutely love, and one that caught my eye and the eyes of many, was the commercial for NASCAR 2011, the game. This commercial was so badass. There was tons of hype buildup. It looked more realistic than any NASCAR game we had ever seen before that. The giant crash with Greg Biffle flipping and basically the entire pack crashing at the front stretch of Dover just added to it. Now, if the game itself had just been at least half as good, well, we might remember it a little better. Something we do remember a ton of is Jimmie Johnson's dominance, and ESPN capitalized perfectly on it. Back when the chase was on ESPN and ABC, they made some of the best commercials hyping up a championship battle, not only in NASCAR, but in my opinion, in sports in general, whether it be funny or serious. And the one I'm talking about was pretty serious and really, really good at defining how great Jimmie Johnson was. It's Jimmie Johnson walking down pit road, passing legends, greats of the sport. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt chief among them. Without even the background commentary given in the commercial, you can already see the message being conveyed. That Jimmie Johnson was very closely encroaching on something that seemed to be a right of only Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt, to be a 7-time champion. And in 2012 to 2013, in that range, the early 2010s, I can tell you, it didn't feel realistic, and it kind of didn't feel right. It was insane watching Jimmie Johnson do this, and ESPN made a commercial that all of us can go back to as a time capsule of what he really was doing at the time. And that's something that a lot of commercials can do to make them timeless as well. Now, the last one that's kind of serious I'll talk about here is a modern one, and it's the best season ever commercial from Fox Sports this year. Now, I'll be honest, it's not the greatest commercial of all time. It's a good one. It's really good, and I think it captures a lot of the essence and energy of what NASCAR is right now. But at the same time, it's a little goofy too. It's a fun commercial that can show you, hey, this is a legitimate and serious sport, but at the same time, not too serious. Plus, it's just great at showing you who these drivers are and who you can root for if you're not a fan already. Now, one thing that NASCAR is that it can also be argued to have too heavily relied on is just being the fun and joking sport amongst the serious sports in America. Now, this is a fine line that people need to walk on. You go too far one direction, you look like you're making fun of the sport. You go too far the other direction, only people who watch the sport can really get what you're saying. Well, I can tell you this, nobody really has mastered making themselves as a funny, basically character for the sport as Michael Waltrip. Waltrip is just a master of comedic genius when it comes to marketing. A lot of people think that Michael Waltrip is this dumb oaf that just goes around as a Fox prop. To be honest though, the man has marketed himself like a genius. People know Michael Waltrip and they know the brand. Now, he's done plenty of commercials with this kind of comedic flair, but there are two that I really want to highlight today. Now, number one is a classic. Michael Waltrip walking around in the morning at a pristine, empty speedway. Just taking everything in, talking about it with NAPA Auto Parts, and then he realizes,
I'm at the wrong track.
Now, the other one I want to highlight today is one that he did later on when he was driving for his own team. And I believe Dale Jarrett was in it, if I remember correct. But in the commercial, you have Michael Waltrip walking down with Dale Jarrett. They're talking, and you can hear in the background some muffled music that gets louder and louder. Well, it's Sammy Hagar playing, and he's singing I Can't Drive 55. Then, when Michael Waltrip opens the door and asks him to turn it down, well, there's a joke made at Michael Waltrip basically sucking ass for the last 2 years with his team. It's a good commercial, and it's a good way for Michael to basically poke at himself and make himself part of the joke. After all, Clint Boyer did the same thing at Bristol.
Michael Waltrip is the worst driver in NASCAR, period.
Now, another person who's done really well at making good comedic commercials is Michael Waltrip's former DEI teammate and the former most popular driver in NASCAR, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Now, like I said, he was the most popular driver, and if you know anything, the most popular people in sports are going to be in tons of commercials and utilized to the fullest extent. Well, Dale Jr. was far from any different. And a few of them that he did really well have just basically become classics through the years. Now, again, I'm only going to be talking about two of these. Starting off, well, you got one of his Super Bowl ads, the Dale Call. This is one that for a couple years actually was really popular amongst fans. Hell, they even made their own merchandise that I use on a weekly basis on my podcast. It's just something that's really fun, something that you can laugh at the sport a little bit with it, I guess, if you wanted to, but it's something that everybody can laugh at. I can remember watching the Super Bowl, seeing that ad pop up, not thinking anything of it really, just thinking, oh, it's two guys hunting ducks talking about Mountain Dew. And then this car just flies out of the weeds, basically, and starts doing a donut with ducks flying around. It's funny. I mean, come on. Who doesn't think a car flying against the laws of physics? Because, I mean, you look at how that thing was flying, and there's no way in hell it made that jump naturally. It's just something funny to watch. Now, another funny one is a little bit of a, I won't say dark humor, but definitely a little more edgy with the humor. Dale Jr. is at the start of the commercial kissing his girlfriend goodbye on a plane. They're talking and how she'll see him in LA, and he gets in the car and he sees she forgot her lipstick. He speeds across the country, meets her at the airport right as she lands to hand her lipstick, and
I think you forgot something.
This isn't mine.
Now, something else that has really been done well in NASCAR's recent history is making commercial campaigns. Now, while there are some today that I could talk about, there's some really, really good ones from the 2000s and early 2010s. So I'm going to go in depth about those ones first. The first one is the Kasey Kahne girls. I'll be completely honest, I don't remember whatsoever what they were marketing, basically. I do not know what it was. I'll look and it'll be in the video, but I don't know right now. What I do remember is 3 pretty attractive girls fawning over Kasey Kahne. It was really funny. After all, Kasey Kahne was known as Old Blue Eyes at the time, and that every girl wanted to be with him. So they played right into it, and it was perfect marketing, and it was comedic gold. Also, another one is the Coca-Cola racing family. This is one that has gotten into today, and there's tons of good commercials, but there's one in particular that I think is just above and beyond, and it's the one where they sing, "I want to buy the world a Coke." It's funny, and it's something that's really catchy, and I think you could also reimagine this with the modern Coca-Cola racing family. Also, you have all the Toyota ads. These ones are great. They can be serious, they can be funny, they can just basically be weird if they want, but they always fit into what the sport is at the time. Toyota's done a really great job of making great marketing decisions with NASCAR. And the one that I absolutely love is the Toyota RC cars. That's one as a kid that made my imagination run like a track star. I'll be real with you, I was not a big fan of Toyota being in NASCAR, mainly because I was a 7 or 8-year-old when all this stuff was happening and I was a fan of Chevy, but even so, I was not a fan of Toyota. I can tell you though, that ad right there made me as a kid laugh. And what it also did in making me laugh was lighten me up to the idea of Toyota being there. And like I said, it made my imagination run wild. Can you imagine having a fully sized stock car and basically just having it as a remote control RC car? That would be so cool. Any kid would want that. That is a kid's dream. I'll be real, at the time, I didn't like Kyle Busch a ton. I wouldn't have cared if it was Kyle Busch's car. I would love to have that. Don't care what car it is. Now, another good ad campaign that a lot of people have been asking for a revival of, including myself, is the Gillette Young Guns campaign. Now, this had a series of different drivers going in and out of the campaign just due to the fact that young guns need, well, young guns. But no matter who was in it, the spirit was always there, and it was really funny. But let's be real, we all remember this for one word. One word, one driver's name. That's what we remember this campaign for.
Newman.
Now, to end off, there are 3 commercials I want to talk about. One that really was the jumpstart of somebody's career before they were big. Another, because it's something that's big today and I think will become a classic commercial one day. And then the other is my all-time favorite NASCAR commercial. So let's start off with the career Kickstarter. The Matt Kenseth NASCAR commercial with John Krasinski heckling Matt Kenseth for a solid 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah, that sounds like something that I just pulled out of a Cards Against Humanity pile. Just some random things put together that would hobble together a funny idea. I'll be honest, I don't have some magic commentary to add to this. I just think it's a funny commercial, and I think that more people should see it. Another one is one that I will add a little commentary to. There is a commercial that has come out this year that has really become almost a meme, and because it's a meme, it will be remembered, even if it becomes out of style. And that is the Denny Hamlin PJ's commercial with Dominos. This is pretty big because this is another major company actually jumping into the sport in the early 2020s, and it's a funny commercial. Granted, it's not going to be like a Forgotten Lipstick or a I'm at the wrong track kind of funny. It's nowhere near those kind of funny. It made me chuckle when I saw it. But what I see in it is that this is a type of commercial that for kids growing up in the sport today will be like one of those commercials to them. This is a kind of commercial that, while not astoundingly funny in its comedy, is still comedic enough to be memorable. After all, everybody has talked about this to the point where Denny Hamlin has even memed himself on this on Twitter. So while this is not personally one of my favorite all-time commercials, I do see that it's going to be one that maybe one day might even be parodied. Who knows? It was a really good commercial, and I'm glad to see it every week. Now, last will certainly not be least when it comes to the commercials I'm talking about here today. The number one commercial that I love above any other is the NASCAR Timeless commercial from around 2003 or 4. This commercial is not the most groundbreaking commercial ever made. It's not one that's the most serious, not one that's the most fun, not one that's the most comedic. But what it is a perfect celebration and mix of NASCAR's history, of what NASCAR was at the time in that present, and what NASCAR could build towards with the future. If you want to see a perfect encapsulation of what the feel of NASCAR was in 2003 to 2005 or 6, watch this commercial. Yeah, it's fun, but you see the serious nature that's being taken place on the commercial. Yeah, there's tons of historic figures in it and history in it, but there's also a celebration of those who were big at the time. Yeah, there's a lot of focus on the recently deceased Dale Earnhardt, but there's also a lot of focus on the King, on David Pearson, a lot of focus on the drivers, but also a lot of focus on the broadcasters. This commercial to me is perfect. It is the definition of a perfect commercial. It doesn't have to be the best at anything, as long as all together it comes together to make this, basically, like I said, perfect mold of what NASCAR is, was, and will be. This is a commercial above any other that I want to see reimagined with the present, with present technology to make it happen. Because yeah, while it looked good for 2003 or 4 standards, it still is kind of wonky to see the cars the way they are. I personally don't think it takes anything back from that, but I would love to see Jimmy Johnson added in with the all-time greats. I would love to see a later version of Jeff Gordon's car added into that. I'd love to see Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick racing against them. Denny Hamlin mixed in. See Chase Elliott, Bubba Wallace. All of these drivers that are big today or the future of the sport mix in with all the drivers that were great. You can keep Dale Earnhardt in. You can keep David Pearson, Richard Petty, Dale Jr., Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. All of these great drivers can be kept in with the drivers in the last 20 years since this came out, really, that have made the sport what it is. I think it'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I can't show this commercial because Boston's long time is playing, and I really don't want to get a copyright claim on this. But I'll leave a link to it, and I also will probably tweet at least some of it out on my Twitter. But you gotta watch this commercial. It is, honest to God, in my opinion, the best NASCAR commercial ever, bar none. Now, with that, I'm going to give this all to you. What's your favorite NASCAR commercial ever? I want you to let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, leave a like in this video and share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. And until next time, have a good one.